Hello and welcome to the Addicts Anonymous podcast. I'm your host, Jim R. Today's episode 159, and we're going to be interviewing Regina. How are you doing today, Regina?
Oh, just peachy.
Just peachy, excited to do this?
Oh, no.
All right, well, let's get started. If you, so my first question that I ask everybody is, tell me about your childhood and growing up.
Um, well, up until fourth grade, it was normal. I lived with my parents, my mother and father. Um, they were Christians, Catholic. I went to Catholic school. Um, Fourth grade, I started getting, in the principal's office practically every day. And from then on, it was me against them nuns.
Let me ask you a question. Was there something that happened in fourth grade that made you different?
Well, what happened was in the schoolyard, I was young and we used to walk up a hill with like everybody that lived in the apartment buildings that we lived in. And they were always older. So one day I was in, you wait in the schoolyard and before they ring the bell and then you go in. But before that, an older girl that I used to walk with gave me this note, and it was just some stupid thing about Adam and Eve. Like she was like in eighth grade. I'm like in a fourth, and the nun saw it, and she came over to me and grabbed it out of my hand. I never even got to read the bloody thing, and from then on, it was like I was. I guess they thought I was bad.
What did the
You
note
know,
say?
part I don't know. It was like a poem about probably sex, something Adam and Eve, stuff like that. Like something an eighth grader would write.
Okay.
But that, and then it was like they would always like they'd label you. You were either good or bad. And I was bad. And I lived up to it too. Was always in trouble.
What kind of
Always
things
in the
would you
front.
do?
Huh?
What kind of things would you do?
I don't know, just start a fight with somebody, arguing. You know, Before that, it was really cool. I mean, I was a good little girl, and I did pee my pants and during a spelling bee in the second grade, and everybody was laughing at me and pointing at me. Nun brought me over to the convent, gave me a pair of nun underwear. It was embarrassing, but that didn't bother me as much as that note because they label you. That's what they did anyway. So
So
by
you
seven,
feel like you were treated differently, I guess.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
How did they
Well,
treat the bad kids? What would they do different?
well, well, first of all, I couldn't leave school. I had to wait like 15 minutes till the whole school got out, and then they let me leave. Um, uh, they were tough. Nuns were tough, I'm telling you. But I have to say, they had, I was smart and, I got good grades. And I think that's probably why they never kicked me out. Um, but by seventh and eighth grade, I was already getting high. I was a big glue sniffer. It was like a kind of like a trend in the neighborhood I lived in. Stores like corner stores would sell you the glue and the bag together, and that's where I started that. And my girlfriend's mother
What
used
kind?
to buy it.
Let me ask you a question.
Go ahead.
What kind of high would does sniffing glue? I never done it. It's like what kind of high is it? Is it an upper, a downer?
It's like hallucinating.
Okay.
You dream. That's what it is. But before that, I think what really started, I had a girlfriend who had an older sister, and and teenagers, and what they were doing was they would, put their arm around your neck and cut off your oxygen supply to your brain, and it would
Yeah.
like get a high. And I think after that, it was just like I liked it. So, whatever I could get high on, I did. My girlfriend's mother used to buy us booze. to babysit.
How
And
old were you?
9, 10. I
And she
started
would buy
sniffing
you,
glue.
and she would buy you drinks at that age?
Well, probably then drinking was like maybe 12 years old. 12 years old is when I started sniffing glue. And my mother was a nurse in a hospital, and at that time they didn't lock the narcotics. And she used to bring, like, I would get my period and have cramps, so she would bring me pain pills, and I liked them. Um, then my girlfriend's cousin worked babysat for these people who owned a pharmacy, a drugstore they called it then, and they'd keep their narcotics in their linen cabinet. And you know, these older guys came over, and that's the first time I did I guess, methamphetamine. It was a Black Beauty. It was a capsule, and it was women took it for like to lose weight, and truck drivers used it for to be able to not fall asleep, and that and other things that were there, narcotics. They had a PDR, and we read up on everything, so I knew about pills, and that was it. When I was 16, the week I turned 16, the boyfriend I had for my birthday gave me the first bag of dope, heroin. And at that time, there were no plastic syringes, there was no rehab, there was no detox, there was no NA. NA was over on the West Coast. By the time it came to the East Coast, no, that was a long time after that. I One time I did with a bunch of other people that were in the program where I was. We went to AA, and they didn't want us there. They said,
What age did you start going to AA?
I never saw. I went one time, and they didn't want us there because when you say, "Oh, hi, my name is Regina, and I'm a junkie. I'm a dope fiend," and they would say, well, "You don't belong here. We don't do that." So we had to leave, and
How
that
old were
was,
you?
oh God, 17, 18.
So you recognized you had a problem very young.
Well, no, I didn't think it as a problem. I loved it. The first time when that my boyfriend gave me that, and he showed me how. See, you had to make your own. They call them works. You use an eyedropper, the a baby's pacifier, the nipple. You would do it, but you had to find the needle, the exact needle. And my mother, when she graduated nursing school, the school gave all the students this glass syringe, and I knew it was there, and I used that. She never paid attention to it, so she didn't know it was missing, but that's what I did. And otherwise, you can buy it from a doctor that knew what you were doing and didn't care, just needed the money. Um, or you could go in the emergency room and try to get one yourself. But that's there were no plastic syringes then, and that is really so many people borrowed somebody else's, and that's how. I mean, they went from hepatitis, infectious. There was only two classes then: infectious and non-infectious. And a lot of people, I knew a lot of people that were like orange. I mean, their eyes were orange. You get jaundice from it, and a lot of people um, got hepatitis from it, and that's what happened. But then, I did about
I'm a little ignorant in that area. What does hepatitis do to the body?
hepatitis. It's you get jaundice. You turn. It has to do with your liver, something like
Okay.
that. Yeah. Um, I had it. I had now, and then they changed to like hepatitis C. Now, hepatitis C, I had hepatitis C for years, and hepatitis B, I think. But I did the interferon. You do interferon, and that was you had to get an injection every Friday. I did for 6 months, and now I don't have it anymore. But what I started doing was the first time I saw a bag of dope was the day the Beatles came to America. It
Oh,
wasn't,
okay.
yeah, and
I love the Beatles. I'm a huge Beatles fan. What was that? 63 or 64?
64.
Yeah.
And me and this girl and two other girls that weren't in our school skipped school, took the train, and you know, Grand Central was loaded with teenagers and their parents, like especially the mothers. But they were supposed to be at that Ed Sullivan Theater on, I
Yep.
think it's 54th Street and Broadway.
In
Um,
November. It was November of 64.
okay, and but George Harrison got the flu, so it was postponed. So all those people there just ended up not doing it, not seeing any of them because they never showed. On the way back, the first stop to the city we lived in was 125th Street in Harlem. This guy got on the on the train, and he sat, like, there were four of us, so we sat, pulling the seats back, and we sat there, and he sat next to us, and he had these bags. I know it's a bundle of dope, but I didn't know that then. We were like, what is this guy crazy? He was he got off the same city uh, we lived in, and I guess they a lot of dealers used to go because it take you about maybe 45 minutes to get to Harlem from where we lived on the train, and they would deal. They were dealing, and that was a long time ago. But I kind of gravitated right to Manhattan. I used to hang around at on the Lower East Side, of Second Avenue and Sixth Street. I met this guy. He was an NYU student from Philadelphia, and he let me stay there with him. And right across the street was the Fillmore East. If you know anything about music,
I'm a
um,
musician. I love all that stuff.
okay. Well, I saw just
I know the Doors played there. I love Jim Morrison and the Doors. And
Doors, Eric Clapton, Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix. I saw Jimi Hendrix about 5 times. Um, it was it's funny because the Allman Brothers, um, it was like $2, and the highest ticket where you got a real good seat was $5. And it's like, can you imagine that? But and then up the street, it was a church, the church that Peter Stuyvesant, that the Dutch settlers are all buried there. And we used to hang around there because they had benches on the outside. And then I knew everybody in that. It actually, it was the Bowery area. That's what they call it. And I knew all those people, and we used to hang out there. And then up further on 14th Street was an automat, and that's where all the dope fiends hung out. Um, they used to, in the mornings, they would get the newspaper, and they would see whose funeral was, who died and who was having the funeral that day. And I'd stand outside and just, watch, make sure nobody came in, and they would rob the place. Um, and that's what they did.
they were robbing funerals.
They would rob the people whose funeral it was. A lot of Jewish people, um, because they'd have stuff in their house, and they would rob them. Yeah. And that went on for a long time. But I get arrested in Grand Central Station once. I had like 2,000 Tuinals taped to my chest, but I was waiting for my girlfriend to come from. She lived in Flatbush in Brooklyn, and I was waiting for her to come so we can go to Connecticut and make some money. So I sat down with this black nun. She wasn't a real like a nun, but she was just, there with trying to get money. And I fell out and I got arrested.
What do you mean
And
you fell out?
I just nodded out.
Oh, you nodded out. Okay.
Yeah. And it was a metro policeman that arrested me. Um that there was, at that time they didn't bring women to Rikers Island. It was called the Women's House of Detention. It's called the House of D, and that's where the first time I did methadone, they if they would act the doctor actually would, get the girls who came from the court, and that takes all day. Um, and then they'd say they didn't even take your urine. They would just say, so are you going to be sick? Which, most of them were, and they would just give you methadone, the doctors. That place is torn down now because I think it was built in like the 1800s or something. It was horrible. My mother, well, first of all, I didn't make no phone calls, and they called for you. So they called. My mother wasn't home. She worked nights, and I think or she was out. And my father answered, and he hung up on them. He didn't even find out where I was. But when my mother came home the next day, she said, "Where's Regina?" And my father said, "I don't know, someplace in New York, in jail." So,
How old were you when you got put in the House of D?
I think it was like 17, 18.
So very young. Okay.
Yeah. And the women there, they try to hit on you for sure, especially if you're young and, the first time you're there. Yeah. And my mother and my aunt, my godmother, called. Oh, finally they found out where I was. At 2 o'clock in the morning, she came with about three of my uncles to bond me out. She was always there for me, always. In emergency rooms. I was 15, I got shot in the arm by some guy. Um, she came. Every time I totaled her car, I had internal injuries to my pancreas and small intestines. She left work and came. She was always there for me. Every time I OD'd, the hospital would call her. She would be there. Okay, now the last time, the time I was always arrested, she'd bond me out, go to court with me, get a lawyer. And the last time we used to do crazy stuff. In New York, I was raped, I was gang raped. I used to pick up tricks, and you do that with two guys, and the guys would take the trick off. I never, sold my ass, but that's what we would do, take the trick off. So the last time I I was in the city that we lived in, and this guy, uh I did, tricks with him. I would say, could you give my brother a ride home? And he'd sit right behind the driver, and the guy would say, oh, sure. And this time this guy didn't want to give up his money, and the guy I was with stabbed him, and he went running out of the car. It wasn't even his car, it was his father-in-law's car. And I got behind the driver's wheel, and I guess he must have got somebody real quick because they put an APB on us. I could hear the siren as I was driving, the police coming after us. And I took a corner, and there were two police cars there. I smashed into them and smashed into the side of 95 cement wall. The guy that the guy that was with me got thrown out of the car, and I got arrested, and they wanted to put me in Niantic, which I already had been there.
Just to clear it up, so you were
Bullshit.
prostituting yourself and somebody was watching to make sure you didn't get robbed, I guess, or whatever?
Well, no, no. He would get, I would say, can you give my brother a ride home? And there was this housing project where underneath was the parking lot, and it was dark, and nobody would really pay attention to you because nobody gave a shit. And that's where we would take him off. He would rob them, and I would just, you know, do nothing, watch. But this time he cut the guy, and the guy went crazy screaming. And so what happened was my mother again finds this a woman's rehab, and it was like the first ones because the rehabs they had were usually in state hospitals. Now, in a state hospital, they were the therapy they used was like I don't know if you ever took any psychology course. You ever heard of Pavlov's dogs?
No, I haven't.
You haven't. Okay, well, Pavlov's dog. It was conditioning, behavior modification is what they called it. And it was this behaviorist guy. His name was B.F. Skinner, and his therapy was it's all about behavior. It's not that had nothing to do with thinking. It's just the way you behave. They try to break down your image. They would make you wear diapers like over your pants. They would make you carry signs saying like I'm a jerk, I'm an asshole, I'm a baby. Have you, wearing baby bonnets and stuff like that. And they try to humiliate you to death. People I know that were there on warrant, they had warrant. If you left, you had a warrant. Didn't care, they left because it was just so humiliating. They would really tear your ass up. And they'd have marathons. You'd have to listen to that stuff all night long. And that it wasn't. But the program that I went to was in Graymore. I don't know if you know. Are you familiar with New York at all?
Yeah, yeah. I live in New Jersey actually, and
Okay,
I used
you
to
know
work in
where?
New York for 10 years.
Well, this is in Garrison. It's called Graymore, and there's St. Christopher's Inn. St. Christopher's Inn uh, had took care of alcoholics. They came from New York on a bus. A bus would pick them up and drop them off on Route 9. Where in New York are you from?
I'm in New Jersey.
Oh, Jersey.
My family's originally from the Bronx.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Um, so this program was so different. It was started by this priest, Father Dan Egan, and he was from the Bronx. And he used to stand outside that woman's house of detention and help girls. Like he'd help them get, housing, detox, and his name, they called him the Junkie Priest. He has a book. It's called The Junkie Priest. And he started the program. I guess the Franciscan monastery that was there, they gave him this old farmhouse that was, I think it was like priests who were, or people who were going to be priests lived there. It was a beautiful house. It had a farm. We had a horse. There was a pool, dogs, 3 dogs, and it was huge. And it had just opened up, I think, in 1970. So I went there in 73. And it was like so different from those other programs. They would talk about values, attitudes, goals, your lifestyles, world views, a lot of stuff. And it was a big thing on education. You went to school. If you I had already taken my GED, so I took college courses, and they would get like really smart people because Catholic education, you learn those nuns and priests knew what they were doing, and they had like monster degrees. And that's where I started like really getting into it. I loved it. I loved to study. I love to learn stuff. And then we did psychology courses, philosophy. I remember taking an existential philosophy course, literature. Um, and then what happened was I finished that program that I think I was there like a year and a half, and they had a reentry house, and not many, and that is really, that's where you really put everything that you learned in the program. You have to live it. And most programs like now are a joke. They say, 30 days, you ain't going to change in 30 days. You ain't going to change in 60 days. You ain't going to change in 90 days. That just don't happen. And there's such a waste of money. It's horrible. This program, had a reentry house, and that really makes a difference because when I went to the reentry house with like, I think 5 other women who were finished down there in that first phase of the program, I started college, and I mean college, Marist College on right on the Hudson, and I majored in liberal arts. I had a constant history. I took concentration in ancient civilizations, and I minored in philosophy. And every semester I was on the dean's list. I graduated with magna cum laude, and and I ran the reentry house for a while. After that, I moved back to the city that I came from, which was a huge mistake, and met this man that I used to get high with. And supposedly he told me he don't do that no more. He was working, and so we hooked up, and I got pregnant. And he, the day I graduated from college and the program at the same time, he brought my mother and my nephew up there. It was in Poughkeepsie, New York, and he was sick. He was dope sick. Little did I know, but it was kind of like too late. So he went to a program in Albany, and yes, he was doing good, but came back to Bridgeport after, and that's when P dope became like the thing to do. And he started getting high. So what happened? I figured, let's move. And we moved to, my parents had a house that they rented out in Pennsylvania, in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and that's where we moved. We got HUD and did the whole house over, foundation, all that crap, because it was an old house. And I had 2 sons there. But when I was pregnant with my second son, Benjamin, I kicked him out because he was still getting high. He was going, but sometimes he would drive from Scranton all the way to Bridgeport twice a day to get, dope. And I just couldn't take it no more because I was clean all that time. I was clean 13 years. And I kicked him out, and then I went into labor. 2 weeks later, I drove myself to the hospital. I thought that was the saddest day of my life when nobody came to see. Well, I didn't know anybody there really that would come and visit me. No, I didn't care about myself. It was, the baby. Nobody came to see him. Nobody came to bring a present. No, it was horrible. I thought that was the saddest day in my life. Little did I know that there was worse to come. Um, my mother took my first son to Connecticut with her, and I was there by myself. Uh, I drove us home, and it was sad. Um, Then his mother, who was an enabler to the max, um, gave him money to open up a body shop because that was what he did. He did like restoration to like classic cars. His thing was Austin Healey. We always had an Austin Healey and Jaguars, MGs, stuff like that. You make a lot of money, but he just hired people that were, friends of his, and friends of his aren't, weren't exactly, uh, great citizens. They were still getting high. He had, I know he had drugs in them. He had a great big safe, and eventually, what happened was he had the state police. They had this car theft. They blocked off the streets, busted all of them, and he went to court for that for 4 years. And
What they get busted for?
pardon me,
What did they get busted for?
stealing cars,
Okay.
um, like a chop shop, really. Where you steal a car and then sell the part,
Yep.
make
No, I know.
a lot of money that way. And then, and then that's we moved back when he first got the business. We moved from Pennsylvania. My mother sold the house, and we lived together, and that really was the best time I was there with him. I was with him for almost 30 years with the kids. Um, so I had three sons, and then he just never stopped using, and eventually I relapsed after 13 years, and my sons were just turning teenagers, and the house that we lived in, his mother gave us the house, so because she moved down south, and it, it just was horrible. We had police raids. They used to come in, bust the door in 5 o'clock in the morning, drag them out of their beds, rooms upstairs. You know, one time I remember little Sam, it was in the winter, and they left the door open, and he goes, "I'm cold, can you shut the door?" And she said, "Shut the F up." The police won't. And then we had home invasions. Uh, the last time we had a home invasion was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and these super guys. But they come with guns, and they'll jack you up. Uh, but eventually, oh, another thing is their father was in federal prison twice. Lewisburg, the big house they call it, and Fort Dix. He was in Fort Dix the same time. Remember the movie Blow?
Oh yeah.
George Young. Well, he was there with him. They used to walk around the yard, but that was for. I mean, it's hard to believe, but this really happened. His father was retiring. His father had a body shop, two of them, as a matter of fact, and he retired, and he was trying to hide money from the IRS. So when we were in Pennsylvania, he came to. They weren't really good, father and son buddies. He came to my first son's baptism, baptism, christening, and he had to be there just to make sure that we were going to stay there because uh, when we moved back and lived with him in his mother's house, one day we were going out to the grocery store and the phone rang, and it was the bank, and they said, John, there's a $50 check here that bounced. Can we take it out of your savings? We had no savings. We had no savings. But he said, slick as can be. Yeah, sure, go ahead. Then what happened was we tried to get a passbook from the bank in Bridgeport, but they were just not, you know, although the account had John's vital statistics, all of them, his social security number, he had the address, everything was right. And so I did my mother's banking in the same branch, the same bank, but in a different branch, in a different town. So I knew the people, and the woman was so nice. She goes, "Oh, because the father had his mother who was like 100, and his brother who was like 90 something, just their names. He didn't put no numbers, no address, no nothing." So I said, "Well, we need the passport." She goes, "Well, you have to get this signed." I said, "They're old, they can't come here." She goes, "Here, take it and go get it signed with them." So we went to lunch. I signed the papers, came back, and they gave us the passport. Well, he was afraid to, take any of the money. So what we did was we went to the bank, a different bank, and took a $5,000 loan, which they gave to us right there. It was $72,000 plus two CDs in there. Then they gave us six credit cards, American Express Gold. I think there was $10,000 limit on each of those six credit cards. In 6 months, we had no money left. Not only that, his mother's husband died, and she gave him his truck, which was a custom truck. It was brand new. He sold that, and we never even got a car with all that money. We just got high with it. No, he bought like the kids' computers and stuff like that, but it was gone. 6 months, all that money. Can you imagine? All of it gone. And so 2 years later, the people downstairs smoking crack, the doorbell rings. My nephew goes and answers the door. He comes down, he goes, "It's the FBI." Like, yeah, sure. The FBI. Okay. It was the FBI. They never arrested him because it was their mistake. They shouldn't have did that. It was all in his name, all his social security number. So what they did was, this is how slick they are. They put him on probation. He needed to get on a methadone program. He begged them to put him on the methadone program, but they wouldn't. I just really don't know why they didn't. But I was on the methadone program, and he had to give up a urine and go to this stupid class where this guy was an idiot. I could have taught a better, class than he did. But they used to take his urine, and he never gave a clean urine. So finally, he violated his probation, and he had to do time. That's how he ended up in both those prisons.
Let me ask you something. All this is going on in your life, when did you know that you had a problem with drugs? When did you say, "I need to stop"?
Okay, when I went to that program. No, actually, no, I shouldn't say that, because my mother, I fell out again in this mall that was in Bridgeport, and uh, I went to Bridgeport Hospital. My mother came, and the doctor there talked her into committing me to a state hospital, a state mental hospital. But at that time was when they were first bringing those drug programs. Like, remember I told you about that behavior modification stuff. So
Yes.
they interviewed me for that, and I was supposed to go, but I never did. I went to Pennsylvania with father's my father's sisters, who were like old spinsters, and that's where I stayed for like a couple weeks, and then I came back to Bridgeport, and that that's when I at that time when I realized, when doctors talked to me and asked me all kinds of questions. Then I mean, I knew all along that I had all along. You know, I mean, I did whatever was there, I did. They used to have this, I remember they used to have this cigarette. It was for people who had asthma. It was called Asthmador. And in the cigarette, one of the ingredients was belladonna. Now, you know belladonna. So I never could eat a whole one because I would gag. I'm a big gagger. I gag. But, you know, you hallucinate by eating that tobacco. That's how crazy it was. I mean, but then, you know, I did all kinds of LSD, mescaline, mushrooms, whatever. And then the pills. I knew I had a problem when I first started sniffing glue. Yeah.
So when did you decide to do something about it? What
Oh,
made you
okay.
decide to quit?
Um, because I kept getting in trouble all the time. I went once with my mother to this retreat. It was in Stamford, Connecticut, at some famous house. Some lady, rich lady, gave um, place to priests, I guess. And I talked to the priest. I told him what was going on with me, that I was a drug addict and heroin addict. And he goes, I can't help you. I know nothing about that. I'm like, holy shit, are you serious? So what happened was I went into the chapel and I started praying and I just cried. And this woman, I never met her in my entire life, came behind me and she said, tapped me on the shoulder. She goes, can I talk to you? I know, but when she started talking to me, it was like stuff just clicked in my head. They call it like a revelatory experience where all of a sudden it has to be the Holy Spirit just overcome me. And I was not a doubt in my mind that this wasn't for real. You know, I just knew everything that I learned in Catholic school was for real. God was really for real, and uh, He saved me then. Um, I was clean for like maybe 6 months, which was a long time because I never clean a week. Um, but then what happened was the girls that I worked with, you know, we started going to clubs and drinking, and you can't drink if you're a dope fiend. You can't drink if you get high. You just can't, because as soon as you do, boom, you're right back to square one again. And that's what happened. I mean, I gave up all that. I mean, it just, I don't know, but I did, and I started getting high again, and then all that stuff happened, and I ended up going to New Hope Manor was the name of the program in Garrison that Father Regan started. Um, After that, after when I relapsed and had the kids, um, again, one night my older son moved out because he couldn't take it anymore. And he came, I hadn't seen him in like a year and a half. He came to our house and he said, I want to talk to you. We went upstairs. He talked to me. He said, look, I can't watch you do this to yourself no more. If you don't stop, he said, if you don't stop getting high, and he hated methadone. I was on every methadone program from Stanford to Danbury. What, Sam? What would you like for dinner? No, no, not now, Sam. I'm still doing this. Okay, sorry. All right. And he said, either you've got to clean up or I will never talk to you again. And he's the kind of guy that won't. Um, so I knew I was in trouble because I knew I could not do that myself. I just couldn't. So that night I prayed and I cried. I begged, I bargained, I pleaded. And that same thing happened that happened in that retreat. It just overtook me and I just stopped. I never, and I'm going to tell you something. I never had an urge, a desire, or a fleeting thought to use. Never again. And there were three people actively doing heroin in the house I lived in. Their father, my nephew, and my son Benjamin. And I never got an urge. I even quit smoking, and there were four people that were smokers, and I never got an urge to smoke again or to get high ever till this day. That don't happen to me.
How
I
long
know
are you clean? How long ago was this?
that was in 2014.
Okay. That's a
Matthew,
long time, 8 years.
pardon me.
I said that's a long time, 8 years.
Yeah, it'll be 9 years. December. Yeah,
Congratulations.
ever. You're welcome. Thank you. um, and but even after all that, their father died in 2015, and then Benjamin, that's my second son. I knew I used to let them smoke weed because I didn't want them drinking. I figured drinking, they could smash a car. They're not going to do anything with weed. So I knew, I mean, our house was like, I can't tell you. First of all, Benjamin he sold weed and he made lots of money because lots of people came to our house to buy his weed. And, but his friend, was a carpenter kind of, and he would almost cut his fingers off. He did lose a couple fingers, with a circular saw trying to cut wood, wet wood, which I know you can't. I mean, that's stupid. But anyway, that's when the oxys came, with that stupid Purdue and the Slacker family, that tried to say it wasn't addictive. You didn't, get addicted to oxys, which is horseshit. I knew it was horseshit, but the kid, Benny's friend, had the prescription, and they started splitting the prescription. There were oxy 80s, and that's like as high as you can get. They
Yeah,
used
that's a
to go,
big pill.
they used to go for like $30, $40 on the street for one, and so they started splitting it. 6 months later, the doctor cuts him off, doesn't taper him down, doesn't give him detox, nothing, just cuts him off. So naturally, since, my sons, they knew every dealer in Bridgeport because they were always at our house. So both of them started shooting. Benjamin never shot dope. He used to snort it. And that was kind of worse because in order for you to do that, you kind of don't, you have to do more. So he always was, a gluttonous, just like his father. He had to do more. You had to be hanging, or it wasn't any good. But anyway, he went and he got into recovery. I took him to every methadone program there was. He always gave dirty urines. Got kicked off at every one of them. When I first started, there was only one methadone program. There's like 5 or 6 now, with 300-400 people on each one. So you can imagine. Just figure that out.
Big
And
program. So
yeah, yeah.
getting back to you, how have you enjoyed your recovery so far?
How what?
How have you enjoyed your recovery? Is this, you know what I mean? How is life better for you now that you're sober?
No, because I blame myself. I didn't finish the story.
Oh, I apologize.
Benjamin, okay, he went and he got a CNA. He worked in a school with disabled young men and women, and he was so good with them. They loved him, and he loved his job. He used to take them like to places on weekends where he, when his time off, he wasn't working. He used to pick them up, bring them to like hockey games and the circus, the zoo, anything those guys could get in for free. Um, One of the guys still texts me. He was really close to Benjamin, and veteran, it was the day before Veterans Day 2017. Benny never missed work. He always was early. Well, when I woke up, I saw the van because he used to have to pick the guys up, and the van was still in the driveway. And then I knew he was still in the house, so I went in his room. He was dead. He was stiff. I couldn't get his arm down. Um, and I blame myself for that.
But you can't
Um,
blame yourself. You can't
yeah,
control.
well, I no, no, don't tell me that because everything he learned from me and his father. You know how to be, and it's not even it has to do with drugs. It has to do with a lifestyle. You know how you can connive, you scheme, you rob people, you just hurt so many people by just being a selfish person. It's no, he learned that. He learned that from me. When they were little, I used to take them boosting with me. Oh, so he learned from me and the people that were always at our house. One of the dealers used to take them swimming in the summer in pools and stuff because you know he was kind of like a nice guy. Um, but no, I blame myself. I blame myself. So he died. I had to call his brothers and let them know they came. And um, God, this is so stupid. Benjamin was switching from Optimum to Frontier. The guy who was setting up, all our, uh, the internet for us came the day he died. And he was, poor thing, he was all over the house. It took a long time for the medical examiner to get there because, the police stay there. I never found Benjamin's wallet. Um, they took his phone, but I got it back. And it was horrible. It was horrible. You just cannot express. When I walked in that room, I knew right off he was done. His lips were blue. It was horrible. I can't put into words what that was like. Not only that, but then, later you think, never again am I going to hear his voice. Am I going to get a hug, a kiss? He used to, or when he'd call me, he'd say, I'd say, I love you, Ben. He goes, I love you more, always. He was such a kind guy. Like, he always helping somebody, like neighbors and, his friends' parents, stuff like that. He was a really good guy.
I'm really sorry to hear about your loss. I mean, that's like you said, I can't imagine what that would feel like.
Yeah. But let me tell you something. This is what happened. I was so crazy about that because being Catholic, they tell you if you have a mortal sin on your soul and you die, you're going right to hell. And that bothered me so bad. I used to go to church up at the hospital that was like a block away, 2 blocks away, and there were priests there, an older one and a younger one, and they knew. I told them what happened, and you know, although they didn't know Benjamin, but they were very nice, and I was distraught. I was like losing my mind. I just could not picture him being alone in hell. It got to be horrible. So I really drove them crazy about that, and I couldn't believe they tell me that. Oh no, in the end, we're all going to be saved, and I'm like, how could you say that? How could you say that? Jesus, of all people, talks about hell more than anybody in the New Testament. I know that because I studied the New Testament. And I studied the Old Testament too, but how can you say they believe in that universalism, universalism? well, everybody's going to be saved. I think that's a crock of shit. But anyway, um, so one day I was like crazy and I fell asleep and I had this dream. I never had a dream that was so vivid and so real as this. I, I dreamed my nephew ran in and said, "Somebody wants to see you." And I said, "Well, bring him in." And in walked Benny. He was so I just say beautiful. He was 34 when he died. He looked like he did when he was 18. It was hard to see because you ever look through like behind somebody, like the sunbeams are in, so it was really hard to see him, but the colors were so vibrant. And I got up like to run to him, and all of a sudden this thought came into my head, and I said, "Benny, you're dead." And I woke up. But it made me feel so good to see that he was like at peace. And I know that had to be the Holy Spirit because I was losing it. And I know that's what it was. It sounds stupid, but I just
Oh,
know.
it doesn't sound stupid at all. I understand. Everyone has their own beliefs and whatever helps you, if that's a good thing.
Yeah, yeah. That really made me feel so much better. I was at peace, but it's still, that guilt that how could I do that to my kids? Matthew claims PTSD from living there, and yeah, I think, but he's doing great. Sam's here with me. He lives with me. So does my nephew. My nephew just came from Teen Challenge in Long Island. I swear to God, I prayed him. I prayed him clean. I prayed for him because he'd left. He just walked out of here one morning and to go get his methadone, never came back till 2 months ago. Nobody knew where he was. He was, you know, on methadone program, and he started drinking. So, but now uh, he's born again. That's Teen Challenge, don't you?
No, I'm not. I know what Born Again is, but I'm not familiar with Teen
Well, you
Challenge.
never heard of Teen Challenge before? It's not Teen Challenge now; it's Adult and Teen Challenge. But it was, the guy who wore the cross and the switchblade.
No,
Oh, you don't?
no.
Well, he started this program a long time ago. Actually, probably in the early '70s. What the heck is his name? I can't think of his name. But anyway, it's a good program. They're all over. They have programs there. He was in West Babylon, Long Island. They have one in Rochester, Albany, the Dominican Republic. He went to the Dominican Republic too. Um, just all over. And Florida, they have programs. So it's, a good program.
That's good.
Changes you.
So we're getting towards the end here. I wanted to ask you a question.
Sure.
Do you have any advice for people watching and listening?
Yeah. No matter what it is, you don't get out of life without paying life's lessons learned. If you don't learn them, you're going to reap them. You reap what you sow, and that's so for real. Every rotten thing that I did, I got paid back for it. Sometimes, and I hate when they say karma, because karma is a Buddhist principle. It's not our principle. I mean, if you believe in Christ, it's um, it's right order actually the way it is, and when you go against that, you reap you reap it. You reap what you sow, and that's for real. And don't think like This is the other thing. People are always saying, oh, they're trying to find who they are, and they're searching for God. That doesn't, no, it's not, you're not searching for God. God is after your butt. Like, do you ever read The Hound of Heaven?
No.
Well, you should. It's this poem about this man. His name is Francis Thompson. The name of the poem is Hound of Heaven, and it's his. He was living in London under bridges, homeless. He used to sell matches during the time of Jack the Ripper. He was in medical school and he dropped out because he wanted to go to London and be a writer. And he wrote that magnificent poem, The Hound of Heaven, where, God is looking for you. He wants to save you. Jesus came to save not people who are like together, not people who are, okay. A doctor doesn't go to people who are well. That's why Jesus ate with the sinners. The sinners, the tax collectors, the prostitutes. He came for people who need him, not people who don't need him. And I'd go to my death believing that. And if you don't, there's a time or there's a reckoning for sure. There's a reckoning. Yep. I believe that wholeheartedly. You pay for everything. You may not be paying with money, but you pay with something.
So yeah, did you have anything you wanted to throw in? Anything you wanted to say before we go?
Yeah, yeah. It's such a waste. You're wasting. Life is so short. I don't know. You waste. Don't waste yourself. Don't waste that precious time. And the thing is, it's for real. Everybody's gonna find that out sooner or later. It's the way I look at it. Yeah.
I really appreciate you doing the podcast today.
Mhm. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anytime. Like I said, I really do appreciate it. So just sit tight for me. And for everybody watching and listening, if you like what you saw and heard, go below and give us a like. Also subscribe to see when we upload new videos. You can check us out on Twitter, Reddit, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Tumblr. You can also check out our website, www.addicts-anonymous.com. There you'll find plenty of resources and free literature. So that's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed. And until next time.